It is our honor this Shabbat morning to invite our friend, Melissa Conyears Ervin, to be with us. Melissa is the first elected city treasurer of Chicago in more than 20 years. And she was elected in 2019. And for those who are not aware, the office of the city treasurer serves as the banker, investor, and custodian of public funds for the city of Chicago, and to oversee its investments, which total about $10 billion, so this is no small task. She also serves as ex officio for four of the large pension funds. But what you should also know about Melissa Conyears Ervin is that she has created a whole variety of programs for individual Chicagoans to give financial education, to be able to sharpen people's money management skills, to impart financial knowledge. In 2020, she launched the first annual Building Wealth Today for Tomorrow Financial Empowerment and Career Summit. And in the onset of the pandemic, Treasurer Conyears Ervin helped create the Chicago Small Business Resiliency Fund, a low-cost loan program. She also launched Hope Inside, a free credit building and money management program for all Chicagoans. So we are very grateful for the work you do for all Chicagoans, for the innovative efforts that you've made, and we also want to note with pride that Treasurer Conyears Ervin was named to Crane Chicago's list of notable executives of color in finance and who's who in business, and received a coveted Stevie Award for being named Female Executive of the Year in the government category. You grew up in Chicago, born and bred. You graduated from Eastern Illinois University and earned your MBA from Roosevelt University. You worked at Allstate Insurance for 15 years until you left and went into public service and became an Illinois state representative for the 10th District. You live with your family in Garfield Park. I just want to quote you now, because I think that to kind of get to know you a little bit, it's good to hear your own words. I am the proud daughter of Eula Conyears and the city of Chicago, where I was born, raised, and where I started my family. My mother taught me resilience, strength, and compassion for others, and they are the guiding principles that inform my approach to public policy. I was born on the south side of Chicago and raised on the west side by a single mother. My mother taught me about safety and security by saving up for her own home and instilling in me a lesson that nobody can harm you in something that you own. I also saw firsthand the need for a strong community, friends that could step in, and other assistance in times of need. That's a little bit of who you are. But along the way, through our good friends at AIPAC, you visited the land of Israel. And that was transformative for you, clearly. And when our community gathered after the horrors of October 7th, I got a call that said, you might want to include the city treasurer in the event. And to be honest with you, there was a long list of people. I thought, well, I don't know. But the person said, they were persistent, and they said, no, you really should have the treasurer. I said, okay. Well, I want to say for those people who were not there that night, that the most powerful, the most memorable, the most passionate of all of the talks there, and there were many memorable talks, including my own, passionate, but none were more heartfelt than yours. I also want to note that your husband is an alderman, and that he was one of the most powerful voices against the city council resolution on Israel that was sadly voted on just a few weeks ago. So would you thank him for us? So today, we are so happy to welcome you back. But we're also honored to have a conversation about leadership in a time where such lessons are needed. And this morning, we read from the Torah right down there about Moses. And there is a very interesting lesson that we learn about the humility that is so much a part of leadership, or at least great leadership. So from the beginning of the book of Exodus through the end of Deuteronomy, there's a portion every week. There's only one portion, this week's portion, where Moses' name is not mentioned. So the rabbis, of course, think about, well, why is that? Well, in this portion, the focus is on Aaron, Moses' brother. And so what they learned from that is that Moses, our greatest leader, was willing to make room for his brother. That he understood that he couldn't do it alone, and that what you needed was teamwork. What you needed were people to join with you, but you had to kind of leave your ego at the door and attach yourself to something larger. How do you respond to that lesson?
So first of all, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And thank you so much, Rabbi, for allowing me this opportunity to sit down and have this conversation with you. I will tell you, when I was listening to you speak a moment ago, I'm even more humbled at this opportunity because I think about the wake of October 7th. And to be honest with you, when I stood in this synagogue and spoke, I honestly spoke words that I thought were so simple. And the reaction from many members that told me how heartfelt it was. I am reminded of my mother, and we speak a lot about my mother because there was a single mother, a strong woman that raised me, and my mother always taught me to be myself, regardless of the environment, to be myself. And I did that evening. And I learned a lesson that evening that my mother always said, that from the heart reaches the heart. And what I thought was simple mattered. And so I thank you for inviting me into your lives. Thank you that we can have these conversations. So when I think about the question you just asked of leadership, it's important as leaders, and I think about Moses, including Aaron, bridge builders. The true sign of a leader is a bridge builder. While we may all be different, I think about the city of Chicago. We have people from all different walks of life. We have the wealthiest to the most underserved right here in this city. But who is going to be the bridge builder to be able to bring all those together? And that's what I am reminded of from Moses and Aaron.
So you were having, actually before I get to that, I want to take note of something. If you look in the back of this room, you'll see something that you won't see in any other synagogue in the United States. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and the New York Harbor in stained glass. Right? Those windows are not the original windows. The original windows were a creation scene, but those windows were shattered in 1941 by American Nazis. And the rabbi of the congregation then, Rabbi Solomon Goldman of blessed memory, had that windows replaced by this Americana window, as if to say, we demand that America be America. And when those windows were put in, that was a pretty lonely time for Jews in America. They were feeling alone, they were feeling isolated, and I was thinking, as you were speaking, about how we were feeling as a community with the rise of anti-Semitism that has gone up hundreds of percentage points, and why your words resonated so much. You made the point that you, as a person of color, stand with Israel, and that there are many other people of color that stand with Israel. And I want to say that that message made us feel a little less isolated, a little less lonely. And so when you talk about being a bridge builder, right? And this is a congregation where we really try hard to build bridges. It felt good to have you reaching out. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
So here's a question. You left a successful career at a large insurance firm. What made you choose, what went into the choice to go into public service?
That was a very difficult decision. I will be honest. When I think about my humble beginnings, my biography states I was born on the South Side. To be specific, I was born in Inglewood, one of the most underserved communities, I would argue, in the country. So I was born in Inglewood, raised on the West Side. My mother had a GED before my mother was influenced by her daughter. When I obtained my first bachelor's degree from Eastern Illinois University, then went on to receive my MBA in finance from Roosevelt, my mother told me that I was of great influence for her to go and pursue her bachelor's degree. And so I remember being so proud, witnessing my mother cross the stage. I can only imagine how she felt when I did that twice and she witnessed it. And by the way, my mother passed away about 3 years ago, and every day I am reminded of her, so much so that people ask me, you cope so well with the loss of your mother. And I say, because I feel her presence each and every day. I know what she would say in any situation. And so when I think about that opportunity of leaving corporate America to work for my community, it was difficult because it was a lucrative job, I'll be honest. But I knew what was best at the time, that I needed to be a servant for the people. I believe that not only someone has to do it, but we need representatives that are going to have the heart of the people. It's not about selfish reasons. If I wanted money, I could have stayed in corporate. And mind you, sometimes that decision is difficult when I'm looking in the face of a 7-year-old daughter who's growing by leaps and bounds, and sometimes I wonder, where are you putting all this food? But nevertheless, I am grateful to have started as state representative, now city treasurer of Chicago, looking to change lives. For me, if I can spread love to the young people, because when you talk about anti-Semitism and the division that we see in this country, we as adults have to do a better job in being examples for our young people. And I believe this is my opportunity to do that.
So, thank you for saying that. So, you served as city treasurer. What have you learned about leadership, and what have you learned about yourself during these years?
I was saying to someone the other day, and and they were asking me with this current state that I'm in and what I'm pursuing and everything. They were like, how do you do it? Isn't this hard? And the role of the treasurer, isn't this hard? And I said, try being a parent. Try being a parent. That's what's hard. In this world that we live in, we are afraid for the future of our children. That is what weighs heavy on me each and every day. And while we teach our children what we believe is what's best, we know that we cannot live their lives for them. And we know that no matter what we teach them, sometimes there is a greater influence of the world that overcomes them. But in truth, I have learned as well, as being treasurer, as being state representative, that I do take those same attributes into how we run government. Because we are truly governing a diverse group of people. And sometimes there is a difference of opinion. But I have learned that if we would just give each other grace, that if we will not be quick to judge, and I'm so glad that we have young people in this room today. And sometimes when they're really small, we think they're not listening to everything, and we will be amazed at what they hear. Sometimes I say things in front of my 7-year-old, and she'll repeat it later, and I'll think, you heard that? Because we have to be mindful. And so I've learned that we're very different, even more different than I imagined. But I've also learned that if we work together for the common good, I learned that in corporate America, we were very different. We came from all different types of partisans, but we worked together for the common good.
Do you feel, after now serving in city government, more inspired or less inspired?
I'm more aspired, and let me say why. Inspired, excuse me. Let me say why. Because I think about the times that we are living in right now, and I must tell you, every day, my heart breaks like you. I mean, I wear this on my shoulders. My husband wears it on his shoulders. What's going on in the Middle East is a conversation in my house on a daily basis. This is an African American home. So when I said those words of, we stand with you, we share your pain, we share your concerns, this is a conversation we have every day because it affects all of us. And so when I think about the future, I do have hope. In a few decades, the economy will change. Climate will be better. More technology, better opportunities for the future of our kids. There is hope. It is tough right now, though. Let's be honest, it is tough. I think about 3 years ago, the pandemic, when they told us we had to stay in the house, teach our kids, take care of our families, get on Zoom all day and work. It was tough. Thinking, how were we going to survive during a pandemic that none of us had seen in our lifetime? But we made it. And I do believe we're going to make it through this time. But is it difficult? Yes, it is. But I'm inspired by our tenacity. When I talk about the relationship between the African American and Jewish communities, it's our tenacity of never giving up, even when we face tough challenges like now.
I think all of us were moved when you said that, Israel and your concerns in this horrible period are very real and pronounced in your home. And you made the point that said that ours is an African American home. But I think you would agree that that's not the case in every African American home. and which is reflected in many areas, but where do you think the anti-Israel sentiment is coming from? Because it is very real. And I can just tell you as a rabbi, I feel pretty isolated from a lot of clergy of color. Not all, but many. And that's a hard pill to swallow, I have to say. So from your perspective, where do you think that comes from?
We were on the airplane. It's interesting you just mentioned that. We were on the airplane last week, and I saw a rabbi that I recognized. And I'll tell you, I immediately wanted to get up and just hug him. And I was thinking, I wonder what are the people on this plane thinking? Like immediately, my heart went out because and that's just really is a testament to this current state we're in. But I immediately thought about anti-Semitism at that moment, which really saddened me, to be honest. But if I can be honest about, and you're right, everyone does not share the same sentiments as myself, I really do believe that my trip to Israel was life-changing. I think that in our community especially, we are so traumatized by what is currently happening in our community that we may not necessarily be aware or even engaged to what is going on elsewhere. And I think we all can say that happens to all of us in our community. Sometimes we can be so involved with what's going on in our community that we do not look at what's going on outside of that. Well, when I visited Israel and I stood on the kibbutz right outside of the Gaza Strip, just in July, a few months before Hamas terrorized it on October 7th, the thought of me being there in that moment, of what could have happened to me, when I spoke with the mother at the kibbutz, and the mother showed me a rocket, my emotions were uncontrollable. When the mother told me that her kids experience every day wondering if a rocket is going to come into their home, I will admit I thought about the west and south sides of Chicago. Because I thought about our trauma. When you spoke about resilience, that's a word I use every day. I visited the Resilience Center in Israel, and I declare from that moment, I want to create a resilience center in Chicago for those that have been traumatized. From your community, my community, all communities, we share that in common. And so what I witnessed in Israel is that we have more in common than different.
Yeah. You know, we have made trauma and trauma care a priority, and the statistics of PTSD in Israel today are really staggering. But I've been working, you may know this, with Pastor Chris Harris to bring the work of Natal to the south side of Chicago, and we are seeing those kinds of connections being made. But I do have to say that I am a little fearful that we're not going to be able to continue that momentum because of so much tension right now, and I think so much misunderstanding and a lack of nuance in the conversation. But tell me what gives you hope in this moment.
I am reminded that there was a time when the African American and Jewish community walked step, as they call lock and step, but walked hand in hand. And I will tell you, I'm inspired that that is going to happen again. And it may not seem like that in this moment, but as you say, Rabbi, myself, my husband, and others that do support the U.S.-Israel relationship, that do support the two-state solution. While it may look dim right now, I just want to remind you that our ancestors experienced hard times as we're experiencing today, and they survived, and we saw better. While it seems like we have taken steps backwards, I believe that we are able and going to be able to move it forward. But let me also be clear on this. Who's going to move it forward but us? No one is going to do it for us. I tell my community all the time, if you're looking for someone to come to save us, it's not going to happen. We have to save ourselves. And that is what inspires me every day, because I think, well, if we want to make a change, it's going to be us to do it. These young people in the room, these are the future leaders. What are we showing them? And we have to tell them, even with what they see, the hatred. And I don't really know what has happened that there is so much hatred in this world. I try to exhibit love because I understand that we're different and we are imperfect people. And so if we would just start in our households with love and teaching our families to love one another and love others even if they're different, then I do believe that that will spill over into the world.
That's beautifully said. One last question, since you've mentioned the number of young people sitting in this room. What would you tell them is the most important component of leadership?
The most important component is patience and listening. When I go into a room, I never think that I am the smartest person in the room. But I do believe that the answer is in the room. I do. But because I believe that all of us have a point of view that we should share. And to be a leader, you have to be able to accept differences, listen, embrace, but all work together at all times for the common good. And I want to say this because since you said it was the last question, Rabbi, I will continue to make my stance on how I feel about the U.S.-Israel relationship. It has always been important. It's very important now. Thank you. But I will also tell you that in this moment, it does remind me of the civil rights movement when the Jewish leaders walked with Martin Luther King. And I said that then that night, and I say this today. This is an opportunity. We need each other. And this is an opportunity for us to work together. What you hear on social media is not the sentiments of everyone in the community. And so I sit here this morning to let you know there is still hope. We can work together. And you have one leader right here sitting before you that is welcoming that relationship.
Thank you. We are a people that take blessings seriously. I want to say that you are a blessing to the city of Chicago. Your work as treasurer has really been exemplary and I think is also a model of leadership. Your friendship to the Jewish community and to the U.S.-Israel relationship is also a blessing. And our hope and our prayer is that God will bless you with good fortune in all of your endeavors as you move forward. We are so very honored that you chose to be with us on this Shabbat morning. Thank you, Melissa Conyears Ervin, for being with us.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.